Hi. Greetings from Wisdom Lord Raphael. Before we start, please hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell icon and don't miss any content. This is the light novel of that time I got reincarnated as a slime. If you haven't watched previous video, I will leave the link on the description box, or you can click here. Let's start. This is Tensura Light Novel Volume 17. Tensura Light Novel. Volume 17. Fragments Across Spacetime. Chapter 2. Distant Memories. Heart of Nations Meeting. Well then, next is the Great Rosium Dynasty. With that muttered, Velgrind once again turned on the communications equipment and channeled it to the Foreign Intelligence Agency of the Great Rosium Dynasty. However, the signal that was supposed to connect was blocked by some kind of interference. Since it was wartime, the window was open regardless of time difference. This is an action in accordance with the agreement of each country, and it is a measure to negotiate quickly according to the war situation. Normally they would negotiate a ceasefire, but this time they are using it to share information on the common enemy, the demon. Since both sides were in a position to allow the military to run amok, they were also trying to understand the current situation when considering the timings to explain to the people. Now is just the time for a regular lunchtime call. It's unlikely that the other party is not at home, and since the communication facility is not in one place, it's unlikely that the machine is malfunctioning. Certainly, there was a high probability that something out of the ordinary had occurred, even the person in charge had come to the conclusion. Under such circumstances, Velgrind is operating normally. Magical interference is just not on this world's level. In other words, it's safe to assume that the demon has done something. But they're still unlucky to have done it when I'm onto them. No. It's different. Rudra's luck must be working. That's my Rudra. She was responding with happy thoughts. Well, magic and witchcraft are the norm in this world, and it is difficult to use magic that can interfere with the laws of the world. So Velgrind's guess was indeed correct. However, complimenting Rudra here was an overestimate. This is because the current Akira Sakura does not have such power, so this situation was just a coincidence. In other words, the phantoms were unlucky. The plan for the invasion was guaranteed to fall apart once Velgrind intervened in earnest. Velgrind quickly manipulated the communication equipment and drew a precise magic circle in the air. Two magic circles no larger than 30 centimeters in diameter illuminated the communications equipment with a mysterious glow. Velgrind's magic was transformed into radio waves that are delivered to the land of the Great Rosium Dynasty at a distance. There it became an interference wave again, instantly destroying the sabotage the phantom was attempting to create. To an ordinary person, no, even to the master-level sorcerers of this world, this was a feat beyond comprehension. Is there someone here? Please tell me if there is anyone to reply. We're connected. Help, a demon has invaded the royal palace. They cut off all means of communication to the outside world, and we were at a loss. Don't panic, fool. We belong to the great Japanese Empire. I'm not saying that we won't cooperate, but we can't just have you asking for help out of the blue. It was a valid argument. The Great Rosium soldiers have regained their composure after hearing Velgrind's response. There was a brief pause, as if they were consulting. Then they were replaced by a calmer voice, and the conversation resumed. I'm sorry about earlier. I am Sergei, Director of Foreign Intelligence of the Grand Rosium Dynasty. At the risk of sounding disgraceful, we need your support. We are sending out a series of dispatches to the various Great Rosium locations, but nobody is responding. Will your country please contact us? If she was willing, Sergei will give an encryption code that will lead to various military bases. The resistance in the royal palace continues, but the power of the demon was overwhelming. They're hiding out for now, but it's clear that if they don't do something, they'll be traced back to their refuge. She knows that if that happens, she won't be able to protect the royals he took out. That's why Sergei has decided to send for reinforcements from all over the country to help escape from the demons in the chaos. Now, the fate of the Great Rosium Dynasty rested on the Empire's response. And yet. I told you, I don't want you to make arbitrary demands. Wait, if you help us. Calm down. I don't care about your situation. All you have to do is nod to my request. She doesn't listen to people's requests, but rather conveys her requests. Moreover, Velgrind says she only accepts consent. That attitude was very Velgrind-like. What's the matter with you? I will convey your request. I will hold an international conference to ascertain the will of the world, and you will bring royalty or someone in command to it. If you do, I will help you. A question should have been asked about this, but for some reason Sergei believed it. He glanced around the room and saw the nobleman who huddled there, needing to be protected. It's my job to protect these men. Now. Sergei understood that there was no other way. Trusting the word of a stranger is a folly he would never normally take. But now, even if he was deceived by those words, he still had no time to waste. In terms of risk, it's no different whether I believe it or not. Then in the end, it's fun to dream of hope. I apologize if I implicate the nobleman of the realm in my own stupidity. But Sergei is prepared to do so. Forgive me, I know you think this is a stupid time to ask, but it is requested that we hold an international meeting. Would it be possible for His Majesty to participate? I will. It was the highest authority in the room who answered that. Emperor Magellan of the Great Russian Dynasty, 35 years old. Although still young, he has been on the throne for 10 years. He was so ambitious that he decided to invade China to take over the northern continent as absolute ruler. Of course, there were objections from the military, but there were also many bellicose opinions, and the war began with Magellan's will taking precedence. Magellan also suffered a major setback here. He was tormented by a sense of helplessness in the face of an enemy that could not be measured by human common sense. After all this time, Magellan regrets his decision. He had launched a campaign against China, but it had led to political instability. Magellan had a penchant for luxury, but not for misrule. The people would not object to the emperor living a noble life if their lives were relieved. But the war had changed the situation. It would deprive their people of their rich granaries. They want to take an ice-free harbor for national defense. What began as a policy of only looking out for their own interests turned into a disaster when the Holy Arsha Empire invaded the Great Rosium Dynasty. They were caught between a rock and a hard place. By the time the demon's plan had worked, the situation was already too chaotic to recover from. It was so foolish when I think about it now. I shouldn't have listened to his words at that time. It was true that the words of his confidant at the time had turned Magellan's attention to the war. It was later revealed that his confidant was taken over by a demon. Demons are mysterious beings who tend to enjoy causing humanity to fight each other and leading the world to destruction rather than destroying it with their own hands. That's why Magellan is still alive. That demon was fearsome. We can't win. Even with Pulcinella, we would still be defeated. Magellan shuddered as he remembered the smiling demon with a confused look on his face. Even mystery monk Pulcinella, their lifeline, was now in the hands of the enemy. That's why there are riots in the capital. It's true that it is wartime now and there's unrest among the people, but the country hadn't been exposed to the fire and the food supply hadn't been cut off. The situation was not quite rioting, but it was getting worse. It was a phantom who encouraged the followers of Pulcinella. Now it was no longer possible for the Imperial Guard to protect the palace alone. With the danger outside the palace, it seemed only a matter of time before they were caught. So Magellan had no choice but to nod in agreement with the enemy's offer without hope. Understood. Sergei saluted at Magellan's words. Then he turned to the communications equipment and resumed his conversation with Velgrind. I approve of everything. But unfortunately, the Great Rosium Dynasty is in the middle of an emergency. Even if he wanted to, he couldn't go, and Sergei tried to tell her. They will help if they accept the meeting, so they will send reinforcements. If the Empire moves quickly to rescue them, there's a chance they can get out of this themselves. No, Sergei did not want to risk his own life, but he knew that the imperial family, the symbol of the dynasty, must be saved at all costs. But then a surprising thing happens. Velgrind said she would help. If so, it was bound to be a fixed future. Good. I'm glad to see that you're not an idiot. Okay, a gate will appear there, so please go through it and come over here immediately. As soon as Velgrind finished speaking, the space in front of Sergei's eyes became distorted. And on the other side of that chasm was the place where Velgrind sat. This was the space-time connection, a supernatural phenomenon that connected two different spatial coordinates without regard for distance. No way. That was the moment when the hearts of everyone there, except for Velgrind, became one. There was no hierarchy of who was the best. They all understood that this woman, Velgrind, was the only one who absolutely could not be made an enemy. I mean, what? Why are the Great Rosium people here? No, 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 is this a dream? I mean, it hurts. Some of those who could not acknowledge reality even tried to pinch their own cheeks. Unbelievable. According to the literature, there are some people in the God Buddha class who handle transference spells, but there were those who tried their best to analyze the phenomenon that had just occurred, but their understanding was not up to par. It couldn't be helped since it was an unimaginable supernatural power, such as connecting spaces separated by a distance. In the blink of an eye, the three countries. The best of them may have been the ones who shifted their thinking in a practical direction. Anyway. Goddess, you are indeed a goddess. The bureaucrats in the Foreign Ministry's Intelligence Bureau were stunned by Velgrind's skill and ability. At this point, no one could go against Velgrind. The dignitaries have carefully cultivated the respect they've developed for Velgrind and are now turning themselves to her. They are ready to be loyal dogs. The only one left is the Chinese, but now that the three countries have agreed to meet, the terms have been fulfilled, right? Oh, yes, that's right. So now you guys can negotiate on your own. Of course. Of course, no one is foolish enough to refuse here. The bureaucrats are proud of themselves and promised to negotiate a successful deal with the Chinese. Velgrin nodded. Then she turned her gaze to the stunned Great Rosium party. Well, is that everyone? I'm sorry, but if you're asking me to rescue anyone other than the ones in that room, that's outside the contract. But hey, if we can destroy the demons in a short period of time, I think we can get them all out. Thank you for your help. Quickly recovering from the chaos, Sergei thanked her. Magellan hears this and also thinks it's time to thank her. I thank you as well. And when all this is over, I promise to reward you as you wish. Hearing this, Velgrin snorted disinterestedly. Even if it was the great emperor, Velgrin was arrogant. I don't want it. You can't give me what I want anyway. More importantly, I hope you'll cooperate well with me on future missions. No, of course. Magellan was miffed when someone laughed at him for not wanting a reward. But he didn't have the temper to be angry here. Over here, the status of the emperor of the Great Rosium dynasty does not mean much. He understood that he was only helped because he was useful. Can you at least tell me your name, my benefactor? You can call me Ryo. Okay. Ryo Dono, please continue to look after us. Yes, nice to meet you. Well then, I'll have you contact me when the date for the meeting is set so you can rest easy until then. Velgrin tells them so. That attitude is exactly like an empress. In this place, she was the law. Quickly, a bureaucrat rises and leaves the room. He's gone to get a room ready for the unexpected guests. Another bowed to Magellan and gave him directions. They were to wait in the parlor until the rooms were ready. Even though they hadn't had any meetings, the roles were divided up fluidly. Such coordination is a great thing. For once, Velgrin took a moment to review the foreign ministry's intelligence officers. Moreover, at that time, sensitive to see the opportunity, the most prominent official gives tea to Velgrin. Ryo Dono, there's not only black tea, but also green tea here. He didn't waste time waiting for a reply from the Chinese group and was intent on appealing to her. Oh, you're so witty. Thank you. For me, Yamamoto Kanji, your words alone are enough to fill me up. The high-ranking official Yamamoto continued to flirt with her with all his might. It was also a talent, so much so that his subordinates were impressed by it. It's delicious. It has a sweet fluffy aroma, but it has a refreshing aftertaste. I ordered it from my favorite store and I'm very proud of it. I like it. In that case, you might enjoy the tea sweets here along with other items. Yamamoto took out an elegantly sweet raw chocolate fondant. In this wartime era, it was an extremely luxurious item. Yamamoto had to ask for money and power to prepare it for himself, but he offered it to Velgrin. It was very good, so Velgrin was satisfied. Yamamoto Kanji, wasn't it? I'll remember that name. Haha. I thankfully and happily accept. It was Velgrin who remembered Yamamoto's name, even though she didn't care about anyone who wasn't interesting. She had a surprising weakness for bribes. But money would not have been the motive, so it could be said that Yamamoto's tact was a quick win. And so, it took a while to wait. China is responding. They are willing to accept the meeting. The long-awaited reply was an acceptance. And now, the meeting of the 5 heads of state was to take place. What, is that the truth? Yes. I wouldn't tell you a lie. Akira Sakura was astonished to receive the report from Velgrin. A meeting between the two leaders, which was thought to be impossible, turned out to be a simple affair. As usual, unfathomable. We are fortunate to have this woman on our side, but relationships built on favor are far too distorted to be reliable. Depending on Velgrin's mood, a good relationship could change. Akira Sakura thought that was scary. A relationship of trust is an accumulation. If you do too much, the other person will be angry or even forgiven, and so on. It is the same between nations, and if you do not share certain values, it is difficult to get along. If the opponent is an invader such as the Phantoms, a conversation will not be established, so they will be recognized as an enemy without any questions. It's a shame that an intelligent life form has to resort to violence, but they have to draw the line at some point. However, in the case of Velgrin. Good for you, Rudra. I'll set up the meeting as well, so what time would be convenient for you? It's obvious that Velgrin has full confidence in him, and that's why Akira Sakura feels he has to brace himself. A favor for a favor. That's the conclusion Akira Sakura came to. He has no choice but to believe in Velgrin, so there is no need to hesitate. He can only return the gratitude he feels with all his might. That's the only way to repay Velgrin, Akira Sakura thought. Thank you, Velgrin. I hope you will continue to help us. Yufufu. It's okay, don't worry about it. Velgrin smiles and looks truly happy. To her, Rudra's happiness is her own, so Akira Sakura's response was the right thing to do. The date and time of the meeting is set for the next day, after lunch. Since measures against demons need to be made as soon as possible, there is no time to make extensive adjustments. Therefore, it was Akira Sakura's decision to prioritize efficiency. He doesn't care about the time difference or even the convenience of the other side. He told the other nations that this was the case and obtained their approval. It was hard on the Foreign Ministry's intelligence department, but Velgrin couldn't have cared less. It was Yamamoto. Good work. You could say that he was giving it the utmost consideration just because he labored so hard. However, it's not Yamamoto who worked hard, it's the bureaucrats who are really poor. As if it's just their job and they shouldn't complain, Velgrin announces her next request. Then make sure the hall is ready by tomorrow morning. Be solemn, so as not to embarrass His Majesty. Yes, I'd be happy to. Velgrin pretends to be quite unreasonable, but Yamamoto had no choice but to accept. On the contrary, he even seemed slightly pleased. It may have opened a strange door, but that was also not Velgrin's concern. Oh yeah, just move a set of communication equipment to a slightly larger room. What do you mean? Since the meeting was to be held by correspondence, Yamamoto had planned to prepare it in the first conference room instead of the larger room. He couldn't read the intent of Velgrin's statement and couldn't help but ask back. Asking the others to come here, just like you invited the Great Rosium party. Wouldn't that save us a lot of effort and waste? Huh? It wasn't a matter of opinion, but rather an unorthodox suggestion. That's what Yamamoto thinks, but he understands somewhere in his reasoning that it's better if it's possible. What, do you have a problem with that? No. I'll have it ready to go right away. Yeah. Well, good luck with that. Velgrin recovered, smiled, and left. The remaining Yamamoto looked around at the bureaucrats. What do we do now? Idiot. Of course, we'll do as we're told. We'll review the settings. Understood. And in parallel, move all the communication equipment to conference room 2. Yes, sir. The long night at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs Intelligence had begun. That's all for today, hope you guys enjoy it. Please check my other videos. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and hit the notification icon. And don't miss any updates. Thank you for watching.